What is Juneteenth and why do we celebrate it? Well, it's all thanks to a feisty activist named Ms. Opal Lee. Come, let's do our homework.
What is Juneteenth? Well, it's also called Freedom Day or Jubilee Day, and it is every year on June 19th. Why? Why June 19th? Well, it's an anniversary. It is the anniversary of the day that the last enslaved people in the United States were informed of their emancipation. Well, what does that mean? Didn't slavery end earlier? Yeah, it did. But you have to understand how difficult it was to get information around the United States back in the 1800s. There was no Aaron Parnas. There was not hourly updates on what was happening in the world. And Juneteenth took place in Texas. So let's look at what was happening in Texas in the 1860s that made all of this possible. So on March 2nd, 1861, Texas secedes from the Union. So they are part of the Confederacy. Now, this is very important to understand. Why? Why did Texas secede from the Union? Well, they wanted to protect their slavery. Do not get this twisted. The Confederate States were desperate to protect the institution of slavery. This is why they left the Union. And it's right here in the history books. George Williamson came from Louisiana to speak to the Texas Secession Convention, and he convinced them with this banger of a speech. He said, quote, "Louisiana looks to the formation of a Southern Confederacy to preserve the blessings of African slavery. With the social balance wheel of slavery to regulate its machinery, we may fondly indulge the hope that our Southern government will be perpetual." So the entire war was over slavery, and Texas seceded from the Union to protect their slavery. Shortly thereafter, April 12, 1861, the Civil War begins. Now, look at this map. These red dots here are all the major battles in the Civil War. Look at Texas. Texas is pretty secluded. Look at it out here by itself. No major battles in the Civil War took place in Texas. This is important to know. Why? Because, as I said earlier, information is tough to transport at this time. So they're kind of way out here isolated outside of all of the fighting. They don't have any Union troops out in Texas. So nobody is telling them what's going on in the rest of the country. So on January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation, officially freeing all the slaves. But guess who didn't know about it? That's right, the enslaved people over here in Texas. And it wasn't an accident. This was on purpose. The slaveholders and the Confederate troops did not tell the enslaved people in Texas that they were officially free, according to Lincoln and the Union. They kept that shit to themselves. Why? Because they wanted to protect the institution of slavery. Now, November 1864, we're skimming through the Civil War now. Sherman's March to the Sea, 40 acres and a mule. We've talked about this, but Texas is way out west. They have no idea that any of this is going on. April 9th, 1865, General Lee surrenders at Appomattox Courthouse. The Civil War officially ends, but guess what? The people in Texas still don't know what's going on. No one has told them. It is by design. The white slave owners are keeping all of this a secret for as long as they can. Why? To protect their slavery. April 14th, Lincoln is assassinated. Things are happening very quickly now. And on June 10th, 1865, finally, a Union soldier, Major General Gordon Granger, is given a command post in Texas. The Civil War is officially over. The Confederacy has been destroyed. Texas is supposed to be rejoining the Union now. So Union troops go out to Texas to check in and say, hey, what's poppin'? What's going on? And what does he discover? He discovers that they have not ended their institution of slavery. Texas is still enjoying their slavery. So right away, one of his first orders of business is to post a bunch of sheets around town. It's called General Order Number 3. He issued it right away as soon as he got there and realized, and it said, quote, "The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States 2.5 years ago, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. So, of course, this is news, right? People had no idea that all this stuff was going on back out east. So, the people celebrated. To them, it was the day they had been liberated, emancipated. So it became an annual tradition in Texas. Every year, June 19th, they would celebrate their freedom. And of course, they carried that with them as they spread out throughout the country. Now, enter our girl Opal Lee. She was born October 7th, 1926 in Texas. Her family lived in Texas. And in 1939, they moved to a predominantly white neighborhood. So maybe these people weren't celebrating Juneteenth. But the Lee family was. They would have a little party every year. And on June 19th, 1939, white rioters burned her family's home to the ground. And of course, this stuck with her, as you would expect it might. And she said years later, quote, "The fact that it happened on the 19th day of June has spurred me to make people understand that Juneteenth is not just a festival." So Ms. Opal graduated early from high school. She was wicked smart, went on to college, got her master's degree, became a teacher. She retired from teaching in 1976 and became a civil rights activist. She campaigned to make Juneteenth a national holiday for decades. Every year she would organize a 2.5-mile walk, this is her right here, to raise awareness for the holiday. Now, why 2.5 miles? Well, to symbolize the 2.5 years that it took for enslaved people in Texas to discover that they were actually free. She also submitted petitions with millions of signatures to the federal government asking for Juneteenth to become a national holiday. She was even nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And finally, June 17th, 2021, Juneteenth became a federal holiday. And Ms. Opal was the guest of honor at this ceremony. Here she is looking so cute and so surprised. Joe Biden signed it into law. Kamala Harris was there to celebrate the day. And she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2024 by Joe Biden. We have no other federal holiday to celebrate the end of the Civil War. So this is a way for us to celebrate the victory of the Union, the end of slavery, and the beginning of a new chapter in this country, flawed as it was. And this is why it was important to Opal Lee. She said, quote, "Juneteenth is not a Texas thing. It's not a black thing. It's freedom for everyone. And none of us are free until we're all free. Happy Juneteenth."